Hello, I'm Ronnie Eldridge, and welcome to Keeping Relevant. My guest today is City Council member Tiffany Cabán. As a Democratic Socialist, she represents the 22nd District in Queens. It's a very diverse and liberal area that includes Astoria, Rikers Island, and parts of East Elmhurst, Jackson Heights, and Woodside. She made a lasting impression when she ran a spectacular independent campaign for Queens District Attorney in 2019, and I'm delighted to welcome you to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
That was some campaign.
It was.
How did you, I don't know what I would have done to find out after you were declared the winner, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you ran against the Queens organization, the whole political establishment, and you won.
Yeah.
And then they did a recount of the, what was it, a recount of absentee ballots? And
well, it ended up being a manual recount of every single vote. It triggered the first manual recount in the state's history in decades because the margin was so thin. And then, yes, we had to litigate the absentee ballots and all of these other things, and it was a real,
do you think you got a fair deal?
You know, I think I got more votes. And it was actually really interesting because for the weeks on end, it was even after the recount and after I had conceded in the race, it was after that point that voters actually started getting their letters saying that their vote wasn't counted in the election. And so, you know, it's like you win and then you lose and then you got the lawsuit and then it's like you lose twice, and then you have people saying, I just got this letter in the mail and I voted for you and my vote didn't count. But all in all, I think in the grand scheme of things, it was a huge win. It changed my life for sure, and the trajectory of my career. But I also think it affected the larger political landscape across the city and state, and I'm grateful for that.
It was amazing. It was
Thank you.
And you lost in the end by 55 votes.
0.06 of 1% of the vote.
Unbelievable. And it didn't do anything to your interest in politics.
No.
It made you more interested.
Oh, I was hungry. I mean, that's just always how I have been. I was a public defender, and you've got to be really motivated. When you're a public defender, you lose way more than you win, but you believe in the work and you keep doing it. And I've just been always driven by the work, and yeah, it opened up. I was ready to like welcome that change, and now I'm all in. I'm all in.
So now, but unfortunately, you're in your second term.
I am.
And I have very strong feelings about this term limits.
Let's talk about it.
Well, let's talk about it. It doesn't give you a time. I can understand because I was there when they passed term limits.
Yeah.
And the reason that
But you had 3.
I had 3.
You had 3, yeah.
But I would have quit most likely anyway because it had been a struggle. You know, I mean, I think I was in a similar kind of position. I wasn't the most popular person and in the speaker's grace and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's just not enough to develop a whole persona. I mean, you have to learn what it is, right?
Yeah.
And do we?
Well, and you're cutting other people's ribbons.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like some projects take so long that they don't bear fruit or get completed until you're gone, and then somebody else, you know, it's like somebody else is carrying your baby, and it's interesting.
Is everybody worrying about their future?
A lot of people are. I am not. I'm going to be really, and it might be a rarity, but for me, one, I never thought that I would be here. Like my parents, they grew up in public housing, and the thing that changed sort of our family tree economically was my dad got a union job, and he was able to buy a home, and I'm the first in my family to complete college and law school and all those kinds of things. So when I became a lawyer, like I just was like, oh, this is the dream. And we're talking about when I became the worst paid lawyer there is, a public defender. So like everything at this point career-wise just feels like a beautiful icing on the cake. I never imagined myself being able to have the privilege to do the work that I'm doing, but also I was a community organizer before this, and I just really, really believe that you find ways to have an impact. And being the city council, those are the tools I'm picking up today and for the next 4 years to fight for my community. And when that's done, I will pick up different tools to fight for my community. So I'm not worried about it. And I think I'm pretty employable. So I think I'm all right.
It's wonderful to hear you talk about that. So you really believe that you believe in making the world a better place for people.
I
right?
do,
And
despite it all.
And that's the mission,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So now we have Mandami.
Yes.
And just the year before you was AOC's primary victory. So we've got these three momentous different things. So what's going to happen?
I mean, time will tell, but I can tell you that I'm excited about the possibilities for what can happen, right? Like, there's a lot to be open to striving for. You know, we spent in the council, in the context of the council, the past 4 years, being in an everyday, every minute constant battle with the Adams administration. And it was like, in terms of agency and social service, it was death by 1,000 cuts, right? You had tons of public servants who wanted to do a good job. They didn't have enough colleagues. They didn't have enough resources to deliver those things. And then you add the corruption scandals, the federal investigate, like it was
a mess.
A mess. And now we have to clean up that mess because our agencies are still operating on skeleton crews.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, we're going to be on the right track to be able to do that. But we're also going to be able to work with an administration where, one, I feel like we'll have a good faith negotiator at the table when it comes to the budget, but that we can be aggressive about abandoning sort of austerity politics, right? And saying, no, let's talk about what is possible and what we can do. And there's a lot of synergy there. Will there be bumps? Absolutely. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
But this is the organizing position I would rather be in, right?
There are several things. So few people vote.
Yes.
Which is really a responsibility, I think, that public officials have to increase that.
Yes.
Right? How do we do that?
Yes.
What do? We provide better government, I guess.
You take a guy like my dad who voted every 4 years in the general election for president and thought he was doing his civic duty. But like a lot of different people across the city and country, he was struggling with substance use issues. He was working double and triple shifts to provide for our family. My mother, you know, was parentified at a very early age. When my grandmother became a single parent, my mom dropped out of high school to be that other adult in the family to provide economically. And so my mom was a domestic worker when I was growing up, and we struggled with a lot. And the environment and the conditions that surrounded my family's everyday life did not make it easy to engage in civic life, right? And that's a reality for a lot of folks. We have to ease these burdens so that people can do it. It wasn't, when I first ran for office, my father was retired. And you know, he wasn't raising 2 children anymore, and the stresses that come along with that.
What did he think about your running?
Well, he was so proud. But also, it was his opportunity to be that much more. My dad was my #1 canvasser, campaigner. He built this really, people would comment on all those all the time, this like 12-foot large poster of me and put it on his front lawn for like everybody knew about it. But now, he votes in every primary. He wants to know about the judges on the ballot. And that was because of where he was at in his life and what I was doing with my life. And then there's also just education at an early age.
Yeah.
Did they have more student councils when you were a council member?
We had student councils, but we also had a course called Civics.
Yeah.
And I had a wonderful teacher in 8th grade.
See, I didn't have student council when I was in elementary and middle school, but I'm going to these elementary schools and doing the inaugurations and talking with the kids. That is important, to very early on start working that muscle.
Right. And people should realize, in fact, that they're part of the government.
Yes.
That they play an important role
That's
in
right.
this whole hierarchy.
That's right. And it's our responsibility to increase civic engagement. We try to do it through participatory budgeting processes, but also outside of my council role, I established and run a paid organizing fellowship where I say, you want to learn how to organize in your community, you want leadership skills, I want to pay you to be able to do that. And that's another way so that other folks are in a position to then do the work they want to do and build out more leaders and more leaders and more leaders.
So tell me, what is democratic socialism?
I start with this basic idea that democratic socialism is just a way to organize our democracy and our economic system in a way that is democratically decided and participated in by the masses, right? And in the context of government, to sort of put it in how this plays out with maybe how the everyday person experiences that, is that, for example, a democratic socialist who is governing is going to tell you that they believe the job of government is to take care of the workers who create the social and civic life that we're able to experience every single day. And that's just like a different orientation. And so what does that mean? It means that you really, really are going to value things like public transportation, like affordable housing, like access to health care, like child care. And if those things sound good to you, then you might want a political system with leadership that believes those things.
It means also that you believe in government.
Yes.
You don't want to restrict government.
Yes.
You want to increase it to serve the people.
And you believe in the public good and collectivism.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? It's this idea that everybody deserves to be able to enjoy a vast number of very basic things so that we can get by day to day.
Are there people who identify themselves as progressive Democrats who basically do not consider themselves democratic socialists?
Absolutely. And
why is that?
Politics. I feel like you could probably speak just as well to this, but we also tend to live in this like political bubble, which doesn't really always reflect the way people interact with each other outside of our political bubbles, but sometimes it is seen, like the Democratic establishment or whatever thinks that, well, if you identify as a leftist or a Democratic Socialist, dirty word, we can't say that, but we're okay with being progressives. But the fact of the matter is that when we're doing our work, we're actually striving to accomplish vast majority of the same things. Like, I mean, you look at the Progressive Caucus in the City Council, there's a lot of us. And yeah, there's a couple of Democratic Socialists, and then there's a whole bunch of progressives. And we're able to come to a consensus.
What do they think differentiates them? Is it tax?
Maybe a belief in capitalism?
Yes.
Yeah. And oftentimes I think just because of the way that our political discourse has gone, is that I think Democratic Socialists have also happened to be braver on issues of criminal legal system reform and policing, and that's a third rail. I think that's a third rail even for for Democrats as well. And because in addition to being a Democratic Socialist, I don't shy about the fact that I'm an abolitionist. That's what drives the work that I'm doing. And I talk to people about abolition actually being a noun and a verb, and the practice of it is something that's just really beautiful about building and about creating and sustaining life-sustaining infrastructure. Like, how do we increase public health and public safety without resorting to or over-relying on control, oppression, and violence?
It comes down to, in a funny kind of way, though, to money. And what's interesting or scary is that all these modern new things that are happening to us, AI and all these things, are all making some people very wealthy.
That is correct.
Now, how do we correct that? We can't.
Well, and it's interesting because even on the city level, for example, we try to legislate, to regulate, but it develops way too fast. We cannot catch up. And so that is
going to be a problem.
It's an existential question.
Yes, it is.
But it requires a fundamental reorganizing, again, of our government and our economic systems.
And our outlook.
And our outlook, yeah.
Yeah, you have to wonder why some people need billions of dollars and other people are sitting on the street.
So I'm a nerd. I do a lot of reading. I read a ton of nonfiction. I mean, I read a lot of like smutty fiction too. But I will say, I read something that talked about like once you reach a certain number, our human brain doesn't have the capacity to like quantify it. And so you're talking about levels of wealth that our brains aren't even capable of quantifying, and nobody needs that, and it's at the expense of others, and there is enough to go around. And then the idea that it's not enough just to hoard the wealth, but that you also strive to own and have power and control over everything, and that's privatization of the public good.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, enormous. So now your own interest, when you were in legal aid and a defense attorney and everything, is criminal justice.
Yeah.
What could you do in the city council on this subject, and what do you want to see done generally?
So many things.
We can be so vicious as a society to people.
Yeah.
What does the city council have to do with?
So much.
Yeah.
I mean, so much. It's part of the reason why I decided to run. You know, after my DA race, I got approached immediately to be like, you need to run for this. You need to run for this. And everything in my body said, nope, absolutely not. It took me 2 years to be ready to run again. And actually I did. I was a political strategist and a national political organizer in DA's races around the country. I was still in that criminal legal system reform space. But I felt that there was a lot that could be done on the city council level. When I ran for DA, a lot of it was about harm reduction, because our criminal legal system does what it does. But I saw just the inequities and the immense amount of harm every day as a public defender. And even though there were these shifts in the political winds where more people were getting on board with criminal justice reform and these different things, I would walk into court every single day and be like, man, that new policy sounded nice, but my black, brown, poor, person with a serious mental health diagnosis, with a substance use issue or whatever it was always the exception to the rule. And so, like, what good was that? And that really, you have to start making systemic change. You have to be able to do it on the individual level, on the systemic level. And what you can do with the city council is you can build. I mean, when I had clients who I represented multiple times, the largest indicator of whether I would represent them again, it was whether they had stable housing. Well, guess what? Our council can ease the housing crisis and provide more opportunities for stable housing. The same for substance use disorder.
So you're saying a lot of the other problems that don't belong in the whole area.
Absolutely. Public health issues that we criminalize, right? Every public health issue that as a government we have failed to fully address then gets caught in this web of the criminal legal system, and it's treated as a criminal problem. We're punishing, but we're not providing the environment that is necessary for people to be able to be healthy, to be safe, to engage in healthy relationships with the people around them. And I mean, one, that was my family growing up. I always said that the only difference between me and my clients on any given day was the fact that my dad got that union job and it provided a certain level of stability in our home. But I mean, I remember one time I was in court, and if you'll indulge me in this story, but I'm sitting in a Supreme Court room, so it's, they're arraigning felonies, and you're doing a million cases. So I'm sitting there and I'm reviewing, because I'm getting ready for my cases to get called. And they call out a client's case from the back because he's incarcerated. He can't afford his bail. And his lawyer goes up and starts to do a bail argument for him, to argue for him to be released while they're fighting this case. And he goes, my client has resided at this address. And my head whipped up so fast because the address was 2 doors down from the house I grew up in. And I looked up and I knew that man. But I knew everything about his family. I knew he was being arraigned for selling drugs. I knew that he sold small amounts of drugs to support his own drug habit. I knew his wife, who also struggled with substance use. I knew they had a family and a home that they were always on the verge of losing. I knew that they had 3 kids, and one of their kids had an intellectual disability. I knew that this man loved his family, and I knew that he was struggling, right?
Needed help.
And him facing, 3.5 to 7 years on a drug offense was not going to serve health or safety or the long-term outcomes for his family. And I knew that we could do so much better. Like, that hits really close. And there's so much that we could do. And as well, we have tried, and I have endeavored to do at the city level, expanding services that can keep people like my neighbor from cycling in and out of
Prison.
Which
just costs us money anyway.
It is the worst
And
money
does
we
nothing
ever
to
spent.
do, right.
To house somebody on Rikers for a year is over $500,000. You could house a family of 4 in subsidized housing for, I think, 3 or 4 years with that kind of money, with wraparound services. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
So when you talk about these things in the council, what's the reaction?
Oh, okay, so first of all, I love it. I love talking to people who disagree with me or who think they disagree with me, and finding common ground. I mean, that's what I did as a public defender, right? Like my job was literally, it was an adversarial position by nature, and I was standing across the aisle from somebody. And we had to find common ground. I had to be able to come to a place where we could agree on an outcome so that I could deliver for my client. And you'd be surprised where we get, because we start talking about root causes. I have a good friend in the council. We don't share the same politics. She's probably considered a more quote unquote moderate Democrat. I think she's lovely and wonderful. We don't agree on everything. She cares a lot about mental health. And so we talked about some things, or this is like going back to, I think, 2023, because we were up for that 2-year reelection because of the redistricting. And she said, Tiffany, we had this lovely conversation about what, you do if you're not going to arrest and prosecute in these situations. And I went into this town hall and I actually parroted some of the things that you taught me. I don't agree with that, but like this was compelling, and my constituents were kind of mad at me, but I felt like it was the right thing to do because I believed it. You made really good points. And those kinds of things, like moments to be able to do that is really valuable.
Yeah, but is 8 years long enough? And the term limits?
I mean, I don't know if I could survive more than 8, but I could see the argument for 12.
Yeah, or staggered, more staggered than they are.
Yes, I mean, staggered would be good, because when I came into the council...
Were you one of the 35?
Yes. So now, when we leave in 4 years, it's going to be an entirely...
Another mess. And do people understand how important their role is? I don't know. I'm never quite sure.
Well, I think this is the honor of my life. I cannot believe that I have gotten to pass legislation that my family could have benefited from, or that I know other people are benefiting from. It is just
supportive of what you believe in, and that is
absolutely
the possibility of the role of government, and how important it is. Yeah.
And to be able to go on the inside and say, I love my community enough to be critical of our government, to be here and say, we're going to also point out and shed light, make sure things aren't in the shadows, and show folks where we need to be better.
Does it scare
I love the oversight functions.
Does it scare people to say you're a Democratic Socialist?
I don't think, I mean, it's me. I don't think so. I have a tremendous amount of support in my community. In fact, when I was first up for re-election for council, I won my primary by the largest margin of any council seat in the entire city. So it's not scary to the folks in my neighborhood. And I get that politics and communities are different. Where I do get attacked on it is sort of like out there, right? Like the New York Post will attack me about it, or right-wing media will. But I spend so much time in my community, with my community, and communicating and working with my colleagues that nobody sees it that way, at least when I'm working. One of the things that I am super proud of, so I will say I'm probably the I'm probably the leftmost member of my body, right? Only abolitionist socialist member, I think, in the body. And if you ask my
What does an abolitionist mean?
So I believe in working towards a world where we eliminate the use and need for policing, prisons, and incarceration. And that is a long-term vision that is a beautiful thing to strive for, right? That's why I talk about it being a noun and a verb, because the noun is like the end goal. And that doesn't mean a world without harm, but it actually does mean a world that doesn't take this easy route and actually build systems of accountability, because punishment is not the same as accountability, right? And repair, and also accountability requires mutual engagement. You can't be accountable to nothing or no one, and isolating somebody, causing what is clinically called social death, doesn't create the conditions for accountability, for healing, and changing behavior. In fact, social scientists, doctors, mental health experts say that the conditions of incarceration actually have a criminogenic effect, can increase criminality rather than decrease it. And I do a lot of work with survivors of domestic and gender-based violence, and I've been glad to be able to pass legislation supporting those folks. And a lot of times in politics, survivors they're used and weaponized to argue for harsher punishments without getting the resources they need to be economically independent, to heal, and to be safe, for example. So the verb of it is striving to, again, build out these systems that give you better health and safety results.
I want to know where you developed all of these thoughts, but we can't talk about that now because we've run out of time.
Oh, man.
So you're going to have to come back.
I'd love to talk to you about it. It's
Did you
deeply,
learn
deeply
this
personal.
in a school?
No.
You did it by your own reading and talking, thinking?
I am what they call a street academic. I am a nerd, but really where that comes from, and I know we don't have time to delve into it, was just how I grew up. My grandfather, my experience with my grandfather certainly shaped my abolitionist framework, and I'll talk to you more about that another time. And then my experience going from a low-income, very diverse school, over-policed, criminalized public school for elementary and junior high, and then my parents sent me to a Catholic high school in Fresh Meadows. And that was like the tale of two cities. And you put a lot of these things together, and it just made me realize that more so than it's not really about good people and bad people. It's just about access to healing, to opportunities, and to break cycles. I would not be here if not for a lot of things breaking the right way for me. And then I'm a nerd. And I'm an introvert, so I really also sought out the things that supported that experience that I had lived.
Well, I'm very glad that all of this happened. And I'm delighted
Thank you.
to hear more about it. So we will definitely.
Please,
have
I would
another
love
program.
to. I would love to.
Thank you, Tiffany
thank
Cabán.
you.
CUNY TV now has an app. Downloading the app will let you watch any show, including mine, at your convenience.